complex, much too complex, too complex, much too complex, too complex, too complex, too complex.
Good evening. My name is James K. Holder II. Some of you may know me as Sir James II, and I'd like to welcome you back to Not on My Watch. As always, I'd like to ask you to subscribe, like, comment, and share. I want you to retweet this and repeat this. If you're watching, it is Wednesday, October 18th, 2017, and Donald Trump is a liar. Mike Pence wants to hang all the gays. Melania Trump has a stunt double. Jeff Sessions can't commit to the idea of not jailing journalists. The University of Florida is set to spend $500,000 to protect Nazi hate speech. California is still on fire. And a former Alabama judge claims that kneeling at football games is illegal. This is America. This week, Colin Kaepernick, formerly of the San Francisco 49ers, filed a grievance against the National Football League and the owners, claiming that there was collusion in keeping him unemployed. The suit alleges that the NFL and its owners have colluded to deprive Mr. Kaepernick of employment rights in retaliation for Mr. Kaepernick's leadership and advocacy for equality and social justice, and his bringing awareness to peculiar institutions still undermining racial equality in the United States. Now, this Cap is not playing around with y'all, because this man done hired Michael Jackson's former attorney, so he is out for blood or money or an opportunity or something. And we all know that Colin Kaepernick has been a free agent since actually, I want to say March, when he severed his contract with the 49ers. But since then, he has not been hired or picked up or drafted by any other team. And it's kind of like, okay, why is that? You've got a president who is antagonizing owners of the team, setting a standard or setting sort of what the decorum should be of players and contributors of the league when it comes to patriotism. And so there's a lot of things in play that are sort of, you know, deserve answers. There's a lot of questions that have gone unanswered because of this particular situation. And Kaepernick himself has also said that he's willing to go anywhere to work out for a team, even if it's, you know, kept private. So he would secretly go and just kind of show and do the work behind the scenes to say, okay, I'm committed, I would do it, I'm capable of working for this team. And yet his agent has reached out to all 32 teams in the league to note his availability, and yet no text backs. So what we have here is a dangerous intersection of media, politics, and sports. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today. This whole story has been the major sort of nugget of obfuscation for this country, like scapegoating everything and focusing solely on these black athletes and their sort of allegiance to the flag and what that means. But it really just ultimately is about control. And what we've seen is that the common thread with all of these things is this pattern of white male dominance. Now, if you have not checked out my Racism for Dummies, It's Complicated episode, this would be a good time to go back and witness, because what we're seeing is that there is a pattern of black people, specifically, not even specifically black women, but black people specifically. When we stand up and say something, it becomes controversial. It must be checked. It must be brought back into alignment with the powers that be. And so let's look at a couple things. Now you've got, let's talk about media. You've got, within the realm of sports still, last week, Jamil Hill was, of ESPN, was suspended from her position for 2 weeks. Now, this all has to do with her sort of initially stating that, you know, just discussing the intersection of politics and sports. And in a later message, she came out, she finally spoke about it, and just said basically, you know, you cannot deny that there's a political aspect to what happens with athletes. If athletes, whether they're political or not, it's her responsibility to report on those things. So she's effectively being silenced, and her money's being messed with because she's doing her job. And at some point, that becomes unfair. And when do we challenge that? How do we challenge that? Friend of mine on Twitter, Braveneck. Now, this is someone who, this was a much larger controversy, and it didn't really get the coverage that it deserved, but a couple of media outlets did report on what actually happened. So I'll put the links in the bottom. But effectively, what you had is that Braveneck is one of these people. She's a Hillary Clinton supporter. She has no qualms about the fact that she's a Hillary Clinton supporter, and she essentially, you could say she got maybe she put out a little picture that offended Susan Sarandon. Now, one thing that's interesting to note is that there's this intersection between BET, who is getting increasingly political, we talked about this before, reporting on her being harassed. So Susan Sarandon effectively retweeted this picture and sent the goons after Braveneck. And the result was that they basically all came together and said that she was harassing Susan Sarandon, or she was harassing them in her responses. And so as a result, her account was suspended. The same week her account was suspended was the same day mine was. Now, you remember a couple of weeks back, I was hot. We were both mentioned in the same BET article discussing that particular interaction. So one thing that happened as a result of being targeted is that when a media outlet decided to report on the targeting of us, we then became targets again, because it was, okay, well, I'm going to go find these accounts and we're going to just report things that they say as harassing material or content. Now, this is interesting because even though I was suspended for a day, Braveneck was suspended for over a week. I mean, to the point where it really does make you wonder. This past week, and also there was the whole Harvey Weinstein story, which is not going away. And specifically in the intersection of women and black women, or women in blackness and power in media. You're talking about Harvey Weinstein as a media mogul. It was interesting to note that Rose McGowan, who came out about discussing harassment, was then blocked from Twitter. Now, that wasn't so shocking. It was shocking and it was uncalled for on Twitter's account. But what sadly happened afterwards was that white women unified behind Rose McGowan to now boycott Twitter, boycott this form of media that is white male dominated. And it's kind of like, well, you were quiet with Jameel Hill, you were quiet with Braveneck, and not that Braveneck is as popular as Rose McGowan. We're talking about, you know, the girl who killed Liz, the queen, what was it, the teen dream? This is from the movie Jawbreaker, where Rose McGowan played a rather unsavory character, but the movie, one of those Rotten Tomatoes specials, but it also featured the fabulous Pam Grier, so I invite you to check it out. Oh, and also Fern Malice in that movie was played by, God, why can't I remember her name? Judy Greer, who plays Cheryl Tunt on Archer, and also Kitty on Arrested Development, played Kitty on Arrested Development. Pretty great movie, actually. I would recommend it. Neither here nor there. Rose McGowan, who many of you probably know from Charmed. You know, Braveneck, not Rose McGowan, but, you know, all these people came to immediate support and solidified behind this white woman who was blocked. But when it was happening to black women, it was kind of quiet. So that brought about this Women boycott Twitter was the one hashtag. In response to that, there was the woman of color affirmation, which was hashtag WOC affirmation. And that ultimately led to farther discussions led by many, countless brave women discussing their sexual assault instances. Specifically, I have to highlight Gabrielle Union, who is phenomenal and stunningly gorgeous and amazingly talented. And she's just a very, very sincere person. Gabrielle Union is not the type of person who's willing to sort of let a teachable moment pass. And so I'm a fan of hers, and also I am sad to see Being Mary Jane departing us. But, you know, BET, this is why I kind of am on the ins and outs with BET, because I'm like, okay, well, on one end, you're getting more political, which I like. But on the other end, you cancel Being Mary Jane, so I feel some type of way, and I really don't know, you know, what to say about it. Neither here nor there. Me Too was a very powerful hashtag, and this was Alyssa Milano's ultimate doing. She was the one who popularized it. Now, I don't know who started it specifically, but she sort of just put out Me Too hashtag, and it got people to admit that they had been sexually assaulted or harassed, and detailing those stories. And it was very powerful to see that unfolding before us. You know, it goes back kind of to what Terry Crews was saying, and I mentioned in the last episode. It's kind of like go back and compare notes, because it's sometimes it's easier to come out and present a message when there's other people saying the same thing. So the Me Too hashtag was something you should definitely go back and check out, because that was very, very powerful and eye-opening. Now, this brings me to the Blexit. What do we do? Where do we go from here? You got to follow Adrian Jackson. Now, this is my brilliant friend. We've never met, but like I know this guy he's one of the down in the trenches originals from the Hillary crusade of last year. There are about 7 people who I probably really, really, really connected with in this fight, where we would just actively clear up the nonsense, correct the record on people. And we didn't work for Correct the Record. I didn't get a George Soros check, nothing like that. But Adrian Jackson was one of these people. And in response to Twitter and Facebook's involvement with the Russian collusion and all the other nonsense things that are just happening in our country, especially over social media, he is creating a black Twitter. Now, that is not going to be the name of it. But yeah, it's kind of amazing. So follow him on Twitter, Adrian C. Jacks, and it's just remarkable to watch. And if you look at the videos of his demos, you might see a little cameo from one of your well-known friends pictured here. Shameless plug on my end. But I mean, Twitter's kind of getting to that point where it's like it's jumping the shark, right? Because they gave Julian Assange 280 characters. And I just don't know what that man has. I don't know why he's on Twitter. But that's another conversation for another time. Now let's discuss politics. Because you've got Donald Trump, who actively called for owners of to demand that owners of football teams to demand that players stand for the anthem. Now, he called them sons of bitches if they didn't stand for the anthem. I mean, all kinds of nonsense. And all this because this is disrespectful to the flag and to the troops. And yet, amid a huge scandal of these 4 slain brave American soldiers in Niger, he told a Gold Star widow. Now, this woman is pregnant, mother of 2. This is Maisha Johnson. Told her, your guy knew what he signed up for. Now, we're talking about LaDavid T. Johnson. This is one of 4, again, brave American soldiers who shed blood in Africa, in Niger, on a failed raid, effectively. And, you know, this is what you get from this person. Now, this is after having been sort of pushed to make a comment. And this is why, you know, my position now is really just that we don't have a leader. We don't have a commander-in-chief because he goes for days in silence, doesn't make any comment on any of these things. And then when he does speak up, it's kind of like you wish he hadn't said anything because he only really makes it worse. This person, then Donald Trump I'm talking about now, then, you know, the Congresswoman from Florida, and this is Frederica Wilson, reported that this was the statement that she overheard. And she was infuriated by it. Then you got Donald Trump today saying she was lying about it. Up there in a press conference, arms folded, like he's in a straitjacket, saying she needs to repeat. I want her to repeat her comments. I want her to repeat her comments. I mean, come on. This is just distasteful and it's embarrassing. Double that down with Mike Pence. You've got this stunt queen costing taxpayers $242,500 to walk out of a, you know, of the Colts game because players kneeled for the anthem. It's just, it's really, really unsavory. And it's unacceptable at this point because Mike Pence, in an interview with Trump, literally said this week that, well, Donald Trump, referring to Mike Pence, said, oh, don't mind him, he wants to hang all the gays. Jokingly. We don't have leadership in this country. All this said, and let's talk about becoming racist. And this is where we need people to get in line. And right now I'm specifically talking to you white people because y'all are the ones who vote for this trash. Y'all are the people who choose this, despite all warnings, despite everything that comes out that you should know better. Roy Moore is running for Jeff Sessions' former Senate seat in Alabama. This man is a former judge, claims kneeling for the anthem is against the law. And I'm going to read you his quote. Now, this fool was quoted all in the news today. If I can get this thing to rotate. There we go. He goes, I back the president in upholding respect for the patriotism of our country on two grounds, he said. One, and this is from Time magazine. He said, one, it's respect for the law. If we don't respect the law, what kind of country are we going to have? Sure. What kind of country do we have now? Two, it's respect for those who have fallen and given the ultimate sacrifice. You know, like your guy who knew what he signed up for. And I'm kind of quoting and I'm making like snarky remarks in between. So I have the actual comment on the screen so you can read it yourself. I'm surprised that no one brought this up. He added that it's a matter of the rule of law. If they didn't have it in there, it wouldn't be, if they didn't have it in there, it would just be tradition. But it's the law, he said. If we disobey this, what else are we going to disobey? Now this man got a 10-gallon hat on, doesn't look as fierce as me. And this little tiny little pistol he wields around when he goes to rallies and stuff. And it's just really sad that a man whose foundation took a $1,000 donation from a Nazi group in 2005 is setting a standard or trying to say what our country should be like. He's running to be one of 100 senators representing us. How do you think this man's going to vote on health care? How do you think this man's going to vote on impeachment? Come on. It's really just nonsense. And we can't sit idly by and let this continue to fly. Let's talk about now sports. Because we're at a point, I'm not a sports watcher. I don't watch a lot of sports. Specifically football, I don't watch. You might get me to watch the Olympics. I'm not going to say which Olympic sports I tend to watch, but it's usually swimming. Sometimes I'll watch tennis now if Serena's playing. I will watch, of course, figure skating and gymnastics. Those are fun. And track, and, sometimes basketball. But football, not so much. That said, you've got something that's really amazing that's happening in our sort of sports mogul sphere, wherein Sean Combs and Master P are weighing in on this current state of affairs. And you've got Sean Diddy Combs saying, who, at one point he had said he wanted to own a team. Now he's saying he wants to own, our own league, a league of our own. And you've got Master P separately saying he wants to start a new league with Colin Kaepernick. So maybe there's something there. Maybe something's brewing. Maybe it took all of this to now get us to a point where we build something else that competes with the NFL, that competes with that power structure that doesn't allow for our truth to be conveyed. Because I tell you, they don't want to lose the talent, but they want us to lose our voice for that check or for that opportunity to play on their field. And that's where we kind of have to be more savvy. And I will support this. I'm happy, just like Black Twitter, and just like white people in Alabama doing better, I support this idea of another league. Why not? Master P has already had much success in a co-ed basketball league with another hitmaker, Tiny Harris, wife of sort of pseudo-estranged wife of T.I., of course, the king of Atlanta. And so there's something there. And I say, go ahead and rope Jay-Z in on it because he's got experience in, with the Brooklyn Nets. So maybe there's something going on that deserves another discussion, deserves a conference call. Maybe we're onto something. We're always going to be ostracized as long as the ball and court are owned by the oppressor. That is our truth. And so with that, I want to highlight something a little sadder that happened this week. Yesterday, fashion lost a friend. Yesterday, television and media lost a friend. Yesterday, I lost a friend. In amazing designer and big-hearted champion for living and walking in our truth, Mychael Knight. He passed away at the age of 39. And a lot of, I've been doing the photography thing for a while. I've been in this studio space here on Peter Street in Atlanta for a while. And so some early devotees might know that Mike and I had a very special friendship. Within months of moving into this location, I met Mychael. He invited me, or he actually hired me to shoot one of his fashion shows. It was at the compound. And we started building this sort of partnership. He invited me to and hired me to shoot multiple other occasions. I was meeting tons of famous people and other cool people that weren't necessarily famous. I met Veronica C through Mychael Knight. He was so invested in helping me turn this into something sustainable. He helped me decorate the studio. He gave me tools and equipment that I needed for shoots. He gave me opportunities to shoot with certain models that I never would have met before, never would have worked with before. He, to this date, he's one of only 2 people I've ever had a contractual anything with as far as a business outlay. And he was a designer. We had a package on my photography website where he would do the designing, do the dressing and styling for clients. And it was, we made amazing artwork with Jeremy Dell, another stellar star out there. And so it's crazy because we kind of lost touch, which often happens, but he would always check in every now and then, and we would always connect over social media, or he would stop by maybe for an impromptu shoot. Sometimes he would he would want to do a pop-up shop, and we would do a pop-up shop for him here in the studio. This year, the first episode of this show, I want to say it was January 20th. It was inauguration day. I posted the episode online. He was the first person to share it to his social media. He congratulated me. He said he was proud. So I dedicate this episode to you, my dear friend Mychael. Mychael with a Y, as you would later become to be known, even though you were born with it as an I. We love you, and we're gonna miss you, and I know that you are a voice. I hear your voice in my head every day when I get dressed for this show, telling me it's all about a look. I hear your voice when you also similarly say, don't be afraid to say no to dough. This was one of the greatest lessons I learned from Mychael Knight. And it talked about having a conviction about your work and your business and your affairs that must extend beyond some financial gain. Mychael might not have been, he was a household name, huge personality, loved by all, but he might not have had all the coins in the bank. And I think that that wasn't what his goal ever was. Mychael wanted to be a supporter of the arts. He wanted to be a supporter of business owners, creatives, women specifically, LGBT. He was a very supportive person, generous with opportunities, generous with finances, and I just remember constantly having conversations with this man about bad deals. Don't make bad deals. And so it is fitting that this episode, where I discuss specifically Black Twitter, and a league of our own, that we are paying tribute to Mychael Knight. And I wear this hat for you. And with that, I would like to thank our other friends of the show. If you'd like to become a friend of the show, as always, you can donate $1 or more to the link above, which is paypal.me/JKH2. Today we are thanking Nuria M, Douglas A, Pamela H, Sally L, Donna G, Melissa F, Veronica C, Elizabeth C, Ellen L, Rachel L, Diavonna S, Susanna W, Little Flower Coffee, Snap Communications, Barry G, Carol L, Sabrina F, Fay M, Angela S, and ABR. And this week, something significant happened in that there was one anonymous donor who gave the highest donation of a contributor to this point, to our shows. So I would like to thank this anonymous donor. You know who you are. And I have to create a new sponsorship level for this contribution because it was kind of amazing. So we are now starting the hero sponsor level. And this will be for anyone who donates $500 or more to support Not On My Watch and also the Counter TV. And I want to say that this has been an interesting space. Within the last couple of weeks, doing this every week and starting the Counter and doing the fundraiser for Houston and Florida and Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. It has shown me more about the value of what we are all doing in this space, in our spaces, in our platforms with our voices. So you might notice that it's been a while since you've seen a new episode of The Counter, but I am assembling a crew. We're going to work through the difficulties. And I realized I can't do it alone. Just like I didn't start this business by myself, I had help, a lot of help from Mychael Knight. A lot of help from Mychael Knight. I can say firmly, if I had not met that man when I first opened these doors, I would not have made it a year in my business if I didn't meet Mychael Knight. So I thank you. The voice that I use here is to honor you, Mychael, and I want to thank everyone who watches, everyone who supports. With that, I'd like to ask you to relax, relate, and resist.
Too complex, much too complex, too complex, much too complex, too complex, too complex, too complex.